Today, I want to talk about the Moldavite experience and what I actually do with my clients inside that work. Because a lot of people hear that name and they don't always understand what it means. When I say Moldavite experience, I'm not talking about the stone itself, I'm talking about a threshold people reach in their life where something is already trying to surface and they can feel it, but they still can't see the root of where it's coming from yet. Usually, by the time someone ends up here, they already know something is repeating. It might be a relationship pattern, it might be something around visibility, it might be something around money, it might be something that keeps showing up in slightly different forms, but somehow feel the same every time. What they're feeling in that moment is pressure without context. They can feel the repetition, but they can't see the root yet. And that's the part most people miss when they try to change what's happening in their life. They try to work on the surface version of the problem instead of going to the root of where the pattern actually happened. What I do with my clients inside the Moldavite experience is identify the root of the loop that's repeating, where it came from, why it attached, why it's still active now, and what else might be connected to it underneath the surface. Because a lot of the time, it isn't just one pattern, it's multiple pattern layers together that all trace back to the same origin point. So someone might come in thinking they have a relationship issue, but when we dig deeper, the root might be a father wound. Maybe the father was physically present but emotionally unavailable. Maybe attention had to be earned. Maybe closeness didn't feel stable or even safe. And later in life, the nervous system keeps recognizing that same emotional environment as familiar, even when it isn't healthy. Or it might be a mother wound. Maybe the mother was overwhelmed. Maybe she was critical. Maybe she was controlling. Maybe she depended emotionally on the child instead of supporting the child. And now, as an adult, the person keeps overgiving, over explaining, and trying to prove their worth inside relationships without realizing where that pattern started. That's what I mean when I say I go to the root. Because the relationship itself usually isn't the beginning of the story, it's where the story keeps repeating. Sometimes there are several patterns stacked together: abandonment, rejection, loyalty, responsibility that never belonged to them in the first place. When those patterns are layered together, people aren't making choices from clarity. They're making choices from conditioning or learned behavior. And awareness by itself does not always create movement. A lot of people are already aware something keeps repeating. They've read the books, they've done the inner work, they've changed behavior, and the pattern still shows up again. That's usually the sign the root hasn't been identified yet. And I can use my own life as an example of what that looks like. I was in domestic violence, not once, but twice. From the outside, someone could reduce that to choosing the wrong partner, but that doesn't explain why a pattern repeated. That doesn't explain what made that dynamic recognizable or familiar to my nervous system. That doesn't explain what root was active underneath it. Wherever something repeats at that level, there is always a root. There is always something older feeding the pattern. And until the root becomes visible, people can understand what's happening intellectually and still end up inside the same kind of situation again. Trust me. That's why this work exists. Inside the Moldavite experience, I am looking at the origin point of what's repeating. I'm looking at what attached to it, what was learned, What was inherited? Yes, it can be inherited also. What became normal and what is still active now? Because once the root becomes visible, things begin to move. Not because someone forced change, because confusion is no longer running the situation. The Moldavite experience includes 2 sessions with me for exactly that reason. In the first session, I identify the root of the loop or patterns that are active. In the second session, we go deeper into what was revealed and what begins to shift once the root becomes visible. After that, you also receive my book, The Healing Matrix, so you have something to work with as things continue unfolding after the sessions, because they will. And for people who are already inside my portal community, the Multivite experience is available there at a 20% discount. So sometimes people begin inside the portal with shorter sessions and then move into this work once they're ready to go deeper. Shorter sessions with me exist inside that community. 30-minute sessions are usually text or phone. There are also 1 hour focus sessions depending on what the lens someone wants to work through. The Moldavite experience is where we begin when someone is ready to go to the root. Most of the people who start here already know something in their life isn't random anymore. They can feel repetition, they can feel the pressure. They just haven't been able to see where it actually began yet. And once that origin point becomes visible, the repetition starts losing its hold. For people who prefer to begin with shorter conversations first, the portal is where the sessions live. And it's also where that 20% discount for the Moldavite experience is available for rabbit hole members if they decide they want to step into the deeper work afterward. This kind of work is for the person who is tired of working on symptoms. It's for the person who already knows there is something underneath what keeps happening in their life. It's for the person who is ready to understand why the same situation keeps returning even when they've tried to change it. That's why I call this the Moldavite experience, because this is threshold work. This is where something that has been buried starts coming to the surface. This is where the root becomes visible. And once that happens, people can finally begin moving differently because they understand what they've been actually standing inside the whole freaking time.